The desert was silent that night. No wind, no sound, only the endless stretch of sand under a silver moon. Jack Turner sat on his porch with a cup of cold coffee, staring into the darkness. He liked the silence. Out here, 30 miles from the nearest town, silence was peace. No people, no traffic, just him and the desert. But that night, peace ended with a flash. It started as a thin white line cutting across the stars. A shooting star, he thought. Then it slowed. It slowed. Jack stood up, his heart beating faster. The light grew brighter, turning from white to blue, then gold, then something that looked like fire and lightning mixed together. It was moving fast and heading straight toward the desert floor. A second later, the night exploded. The shockwave rolled across the sand, shaking his truck, rattling his porch windows. Jack covered his face as dust hit him like a wall. Then silence again. No sound. Just a thin trail of smoke far out in the dunes, glowing faintly in the moonlight. Jack whispered, "What the hell was that?" He grabbed his flashlight and his rifle, jumped into his old pickup and started driving. The road was rough, but he knew the desert like the back of his hand. He had been living alone for 5 years now, ever since he left the military. He didn't scare easy. But tonight, something in the air felt wrong. It wasn't just a crash. Felt alive. As he drove closer, his truck radio crackled even though it wasn't on. A strange hum filled the air, like a deep vibration in his chest. The sand began to glow faintly ahead. He slowed down and stopped near a small ridge. That's when he saw it. A shape half buried in the sand, like a metallic shell the size of a house. It wasn't burning, just shimmering, light flowing across its surface like liquid silver. The air around it was hot, shimmering like a mirage. And then something moved. A figure stepped out of the glowing ship. Jack froze. The figure was tall, slim, and not wearing any kind of suit he'd ever seen. The light from the ship made her skin glow faintly blue. Long silver hair moved slowly, even though there was no wind. Her eyes glowed gold for a second as she looked around, scanning the dark dunes. She moved like someone lost, graceful but weak. Jack whispered, "Holy hell, a person?" He got out of the truck, rifle still in hand but lowered. "Hey, you okay?" he called. The figure turned sharply toward his voice. For a moment, her eyes changed color again, now like molten copper. Then she took a step forward and spoke. Her voice didn't sound human. It was soft, musical, but echoed strangely, as if it came from 2 directions at once. "Water," she said. "Please." Jack blinked. You're hurt." He moved closer, noticing that her hands were shaking slightly. She nodded once, her gaze sharp, watching every move he made. Jack took his canteen from his belt and handed it to her slowly. "Here, drink." She took it, examined it like she didn't understand, then copied what he did, twisting it open and drinking. Her face softened for the first time. "You are human," she said quietly. "Unchanged." Jack frowned. "What's that supposed to mean?" She looked up at the stars and then at the ship behind her. The silver light flickered once, weaker now. "They will come," she whispered. "Who's coming?" Jack asked. But she didn't answer. She just turned and started walking toward the ship again, her bare feet barely sinking into the sand. Jack followed a few steps. "Wait, you can't just stay out here. The air's full of dust and—" He stopped when she suddenly turned around again, eyes glowing bright gold. "Do not follow," she said sharply. Jack froze. For a second, his mind screamed to get back in the truck and leave. But then he saw her stumble, catching herself on one knee. Something inside him, maybe that old soldier instinct, made him step forward. "Look, you're not doing so good," he said. "Come on. My place isn't far. You can rest there and I can." He paused. "Figure out what the hell this is." She looked at him for a long time. The air between them shimmered faintly, like invisible energy was moving. Then she said softly, "You would help me?" Jack nodded. "I guess so." She studied him again, her expression unreadable. Then she looked back at the ship. The light flickered once more and went dark. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if listening to something far away. When she opened them again, her voice was calm. "Very well. I will trust you, human." Jack helped her walk to the truck. She was lighter than he expected, like gravity didn't pull on her the same way. When she touched the truck door, small sparks of blue light ran across the metal. She looked confused by it. Jack just said, "Yeah, it's old. Don't worry about it." The drive back was quiet. She sat still, staring out at the desert through the window. Once, Jack glanced at her and saw her eyes change color again, this time to a soft silver. He couldn't tell if it was light or something alive inside her. When they reached his cabin, the desert wind had started again, cold and dry. He led her inside. She looked around at everything. The wooden table, the dusty shelves, the small generator hum, as if it were an alien museum. "This is your dwelling?" she asked. "Yeah," Jack said. "Not much, but it's home." She walked to the window, staring at the stars. "So small," she whispered. "So quiet. I almost forgot what silence feels like." Jack tilted his head. "You from a city or something?" She turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "Not from here." Jack chuckled nervously. "Yeah, I kind of figured that part out." He handed her a blanket. "You can rest on the couch. I'll grab some food. You eat meat." She looked at the blanket like she didn't understand the gesture, then slowly took it and sat down. "I do not consume life," she said softly. "Not anymore." Jack frowned, unsure what that meant, but didn't push it. He heated a can of soup anyway, just to fill the silence. When he turned back, she was sitting perfectly still, eyes closed, hands resting in her lap. She looked calm, peaceful even, but her skin was faintly glowing again. The air around her shimmered. The lights in the cabin flickered once. Jack stepped closer. "Hey, are you okay?" Her eyes opened slowly, and for a moment they weren't eyes at all, just glowing gold light. Then she blinked, and they turned normal again. "Your home is fragile," she said quietly. "The systems here are unshielded." "Yeah, it's just a generator," Jack said. "You're making it flicker somehow." "I do not wish to," she replied. "My form is not stable in your atmosphere." Jack took a slow breath. "Okay. Who are you?" She hesitated. For a long time, the only sound was the hum of the small generator outside. Then she said, "My name is Karinith of the Dral Empire. I came here to rest, to escape." Jack frowned. "Empire? Escape from what?" She looked out the window again. "From war. From my own kind." Jack didn't know what to say. 1,000 questions filled his mind, but none came out. Finally he said, "Look, you're safe here. No one's gonna find you out here in miles of sand." Karinith looked at him with strange calm. "You do not understand. They will find me. They always do." Outside, the desert wind grew louder. Something flickered faintly in the sky, small lights far away, moving too fast to be planes. Jack squinted. "You expecting company?" Karinith stood up slowly. Her glowing eyes locked on the window. "No," she said softly. "They found me." Jack followed her gaze. The lights were getting closer, silent but fast, moving like shadows across the stars. "What are those?" he asked. Karinith turned toward him. "Hunters. From your empire?" "Yes." Jack grabbed his rifle. "Well, if they come here, they'll regret it." She shook her head. "You cannot stop them with your weapon." "Maybe not," Jack said. "But you're not alone anymore." For the first time, a small smile appeared on her lips. "You are different," she said. "Your kind always runs." Jack shrugged. "Not tonight." The lights above flared brighter, and the sound of low, pulsing engines echoed across the desert. The ground vibrated faintly. Karinith raised her hand, and a faint shimmer of energy rippled through the cabin walls. A thin layer of light that looked like glass forming in the air. "What's that?" Jack asked. "Protection," she said. "For now." Then she looked at him again, her expression suddenly soft. "You should not have come to me, Jack Turner. Your life will not be the same again." Jack met her glowing eyes. Maybe that's not a bad thing. The room shook again as something passed overhead. Fast, silent, deadly. Karinitha's energy barrier pulsed once, and the sound faded. For a moment there was silence again, the heavy kind that comes right before chaos. Jack stared at her, his heart pounding. He didn't know who she really was, or what was coming. But one thing was clear. The desert wasn't empty anymore. Far above, unseen, a black shape hovered in the clouds. Red lights blinked along its edge. And inside, alien eyes watched the small cabin below. The hunt had begun. The night stretched long and uneasy. The desert was silent again, but Jack could still feel the vibration under the floorboards. Like something deep beneath the earth was alive and listening. The faint shimmer Karinith had cast across the cabin still glowed around the windows, soft and pulsing, keeping the darkness outside. Jack sat near the table, his rifle beside him. Across from him sat the alien woman, Lady Karinith, motionless, her eyes closed, her hands resting on her knees. She looked calm, almost peaceful, but he knew that calm was a lie. The air around her hummed with energy, and tiny sparks of light danced near her skin whenever she breathed. Finally, Jack broke the silence. "You gonna tell me what's out there?" Karinith opened her eyes slowly. For a moment, they shone gold again before fading back to pale silver. "Hunters," she said quietly. "They are not human. They track energy, thought, and fear. I am all three." Jack frowned. "They're after you. Why?" She looked at him with an expression he couldn't read. "Because I disobeyed. I saw what they did to your kind, and I could not be part of it anymore." Jack leaned forward, his voice low. "You're saying your people know about humans?" Karinith nodded once. "We have known for a long time, before your world built cities, before your kind reached the stars in dreams. We studied your blood, watched your wars. Some of us admired your chaos." Her tone sent a chill through him. "And what about you?" he asked. "I pitied you," she said softly, "until I saw that you do not break. You adapt. Even in ruin, you stand again." She looked away, her expression tightening. "That is why I came here, to rest among those who still fight for meaning." Jack let out a breath, not sure what to say. "You sure picked the wrong neighborhood. Nothing but sand and rattlesnakes for 100 miles. Karinith smiled faintly. "Peace hides where emptiness lives." Outside, thunder rolled, but there were no clouds. Jack stood and walked to the window. In the distance, flashes of light rippled across the horizon, silent but bright, like storms trapped in the air. He felt it again, that strange vibration, not sound, but movement in his chest. "They're closer, aren't they?" Karinith stood, her body glowing faintly. "Yes, they are searching for me. My ship is silent now, but they can still taste my trail." Jack turned to her. "Then we move. I know the terrain. If we head for the canyons." "No," her voice cut through the room, sharp as a blade. "They will see us if we run. You are human. They will not expect you to hide me in plain sight." Jack shook his head. "In plain sight? Lady, there's nothing plain about you." For the first time, she almost laughed. A quiet, soft sound that made the room feel lighter. But it faded quickly. She walked to the window again and touched the glass. The barrier shimmered faintly. "They will test this soon," she said. "And when they do, you must not be afraid." Jack grabbed his rifle. "That's gonna be hard." Karinith turned to him, serious now. "Fear makes you visible. They sense it. They feed on it." Jack stared at her for a long moment. "Then they're gonna love me," he muttered. But inside, something strange stirred. Not just fear, but curiosity. Who was this woman? A fugitive, a soldier, a traitor to her own people? He wanted to understand, but every time he looked into her eyes, he saw things that didn't belong to this world. Pain, wisdom, and something deeper than both. She sat back down, closing her eyes again. The lights in the cabin flickered once, then steadied. Jack watched her breathing slow. She seemed to be listening, not with ears but with her mind. "What are you doing?" he asked. "Listening for the void," she whispered. Their ships distort it. They bend silence around themselves. I can hear the fold. Jack shook his head. I don't understand half of what you're saying. She smiled faintly. That is because your kind listens only with sound. We listen with the soul. Suddenly, the generator outside sputtered and died. The lights went black. Jack jumped to his feet. Damn thing! He reached for his flashlight, but before he could switch it on, Karinith raised her hand. A soft blue glow filled the cabin, coming from her skin. The light was gentle but bright enough to see everything. Jack blinked. You can do that? Yes, she said simply. But it draws them closer. As if on cue, a deep hum rolled across the desert. Not thunder this time, but engines. Powerful, alien, and close. Karinith's eyes turned golden again. They found us. Jack's grip tightened on his rifle. You said the shield. We'll hold for minutes, not hours, she said. The hum grew louder, shaking dust from the ceiling. Outside, sand lifted into the air, swirling in strange patterns like invisible tornadoes. Then came the light, beams of blue sweeping across the dunes. Karinith stood perfectly still, eyes closed, whispering words Jack didn't understand. The glow around the cabin brightened, the air thick with static. Jack felt his hair stand on end. Then something slammed into the barrier. The entire cabin trembled. A deep, metallic screech filled the air, like claws on glass. Jack flinched back. Outside, through the glowing shield, he saw shapes. Tall, armored, not human. They moved too smoothly, too fast. Each carried long black weapons that hummed like a swarm of bees. Karinith whispered, Do not open the door. Do not fire. Let them test me. Jack wanted to argue, but one look at her stopped him. Her expression was calm, but her eyes burned like stars. The attackers circled the cabin, their weapons sending bursts of energy at the shield. The ground shook. The air smelled like ozone. Jack could barely breathe. Karinith raised both hands now, and the glow spread through the walls, the floor, even the air itself. You wanted to know what I am, human, she said softly. Watch. The next blast hit, but instead of breaking, the shield absorbed it. The light folded inward, then exploded outward in a wave of gold fire. The attackers were thrown back into the sand, their weapons flashing as they fell. Jack covered his face as heat swept through the cabin. When he looked again, the desert outside was glowing, like glass under the moon. Karinith lowered her hands slowly, breathing hard. The glow around her faded. They will send more, she said weakly. Jack rushed to her side. You need to rest. You're bleeding. He saw a faint blue liquid running from her arm, glowing softly. It is not blood, she said. It is life energy. The shield took from me. Then stop using it, he said. You'll kill yourself. She smiled faintly. Would you rather they kill us both? Jack said nothing. He hated that she had a point. He guided her back to the couch, and she let him, though she still looked far too strong for someone so wounded. He brought her water, but she shook her head. Water is memory, she murmured. It remembers the stars. I will heal. Jack sat across from her again. You keep talking like this is just normal, like crashing on another world, fighting aliens, bleeding blue. It's just another Tuesday. Karinith's lips curved in a small smile. When you have seen galaxies burn, a small world like this feels peaceful. Jack stared at her. You've seen galaxies burn? Yes, she said simply. And I have seen men like you rise from the ashes. Her words hung in the air. Outside, the night quieted again. The hunters seemed gone for now, but Jack knew it wasn't over. He looked at her, wrapped in the blanket, faint light still pulsing under her skin. You should sleep, he said. I'll keep watch. Karinith closed her eyes. You are strange, human. Most would run from what they do not understand. Jack shrugged. Guess I've been through enough not to care. She opened one eye. No, you care too much. That is why they will use you against me. Jack frowned. Who will? But she didn't answer. She had already drifted into a strange kind of sleep, her breathing deep but unnatural, the glow in her body slowing like dim embers. Jack watched her for a long time, trying to make sense of everything. The crash, the ship, the hunters, the light. None of it should have been real. Yet here she was, lying on his couch like a dream from another world. He stepped outside, rifle in hand. The air was cold, and the sand glowed faintly under the stars. The horizon was empty. No sound, no light, but he could feel it, the eyes of something still watching from far above. He whispered to the night, "What did I just get myself into?" Behind him, inside the cabin, Karinith stirred in her sleep. Her fingers twitched. For a moment her eyes opened slightly, glowing gold again, and a single tear rolled down her cheek. When it touched the floor, it hissed softly, burning a tiny hole into the wood. And far out in the desert, a new sound rose, a distant mechanical hum, colder and heavier than before. The hunters had called for reinforcements. And this time, they weren't coming just for her. Morning came late in the desert. The sun rose behind a wall of dust, turning the world orange and red. Jack Turner stood outside his cabin, watching the horizon with tired eyes. He hadn't slept all night. The wind carried the smell of burnt sand, a reminder of what had happened hours ago. The glass-like ground still shimmered faintly where Karinith's shield had exploded. She was still inside, resting, or maybe healing. He didn't know what word fit better. Jack rubbed his eyes and checked his rifle again, even though he knew it was useless against whatever hunted her. His mind kept circling the same questions. Who was she really? Why Earth? Why now? And why did she look so human? He walked back inside. The cabin was quiet except for the slow hum of the generator, now working again. Karinith was sitting by the window, her silver hair shining in the morning light. She looked calm, but her eyes were distant, as if seeing something far beyond the desert. "You should have told me you were royalty," Jack said. "Empire, noblewoman, kind of a big detail." Karinith turned to him. "You would not have believed me. Lady, I barely believe what I see right now." She tilted her head. "And yet you still help me." Jack shrugged. "Habit, I guess. People in trouble I help, even when it's a bad idea." Karinith's gaze softened. "Then your kind has not changed." "Changed?" Jack asked. "You talk like you've known humans for a long time." Karinith looked out the window again. "We watched your species before you learned fire. Some of us believed you were born from us, fragments left behind after the Great Separation." She turned to him. "Your DNA sings a familiar song." Jack gave a confused laugh. "You're saying we're related?" "In a way," she said softly. "You are what we once were, before power made us cruel." Jack didn't know what to say. For a moment, there was only silence between them. The air outside shimmered with heat. The desert looked calm, but he felt it. A quiet tension crawling beneath the surface. Then the radio on his counter crackled. He froze. The device wasn't connected to anything, just an old army scanner he used to listen to air traffic. It came alive on its own, spitting out bursts of static. Then, through the noise, came a cold, metallic voice. "Target confirmed. Coordinates locked. Prepare for surface descent." Jack turned to Karinith. She was already standing, her golden eyes glowing again. "They are coming," she said. "How close?" Her gaze turned toward the window. "Too close." Jack grabbed his rifle and moved to the door. "You said they track fear. Fine. I'll give them something else to track." "Jack," she said firmly, "you must not face them alone." He looked back at her. "You're in no shape for another fight." She stepped closer, and for the first time he saw something new in her eyes. Not power, not calm, but something like fear. "If they capture me," she said softly, "they will destroy this world to keep their secret." Jack hesitated. "Then we stop them." Karinith looked outside again. "Then we fight." The ground trembled. A shadow passed across the sun, long and sharp. Jack ran outside and looked up. At first he thought it was a plane, but no, it moved too fast, too silent. The craft was black and curved, like the wing of some giant insect. Then another shape followed it. And another. 3 of them. Flying low, scanning the desert. "They're spreading out," Jack said. Karinith stepped beside him, her feet sinking slightly into the sand. "They will surround us. They always do." The ships split apart, each heading in a different direction. Dust swirled in their wake. Jack's heart pounded, but his mind sharpened, the soldier inside him waking again. "We can't stay out in the open." He led her toward the old stone ridge nearby, a line of broken hills that cut across the desert like a scar. They climbed fast, taking cover among the rocks. From up there, they could see everything. The endless sand, the horizon, the hunters moving like shadows below. The ships began to descend. Panels opened underneath them, and black figures dropped out, tall, armored, with movements too precise to be human. There were 6 of them, each holding a weapon that shimmered with blue energy. Karinith knelt beside Jack. "They are Drow elites," she whispered, "trained to hunt my kind. Then we're not gonna win by hiding." Jack studied the terrain. The ridge stretched half a mile east, enough cover to move. He turned to her. "Can you still use your shield?" "Only once more," she said. "After that I will fade. Then make it count." They waited in silence as the hunters spread out. One of them stopped near Jack's truck, scanning it with a glowing device. Another knelt, touching the sand, maybe tracking footprints. Their movements were calm, methodical, confident. Then Karinith whispered, "Now." She raised her hand. A pulse of golden light burst outward, silent but powerful. The hunters froze, their sensors flickering. Jack jumped from behind the rock and fired 3 shots, fast and clean. The bullets hit the nearest hunter, bouncing off the armor but forcing it back. The alien turned, aiming its weapon. Karinith's light flared again. The beam hit the hunter first. It screamed, a sound that wasn't made by lungs, but by metal bending under pain. The armor melted like wax, and the figure fell to the sand. The others opened fire. Blue energy tore across the ridge, burning holes through the rock. Jack dove for cover, the heat grazing his arm. The smell of scorched stone filled the air. Karinith stood tall, deflecting blasts with her shield, thin streams of gold light forming walls that shimmered like glass. "Keep your head down," Jack shouted. "I must hold them," she answered. He fired again, hitting another hunter's weapon and sending it spinning away. The alien turned its gaze on him, eyes glowing red, and charged forward with terrifying speed. Jack ducked, rolled, and fired again point blank. The shot didn't kill it, but slowed it enough for Karinith's blast to finish the job. The explosion echoed across the desert. The remaining hunters regrouped. They stopped firing, scanning the ridge. Jack could see them communicating silently, their helmets flashing symbols. Then one raised a small device. It glowed red. Karinith's eyes widened. "They are calling the main ship." "How big is the main ship?" She looked up and Jack followed her gaze. The sun dimmed. A massive shadow moved across the sky, blocking the light. It wasn't a ship, it was a fortress. Black metal stretching a mile wide, hovering above the desert. The air vibrated. Sand lifted in waves. Jack whispered, "We're dead." Karinith grabbed his hand. Her skin was hot, her energy pulsing against his. "Not yet." She pointed toward her wrecked ship in the distance. "If we reach it, I can awaken its core. It will protect us." Jack stared at her. "That's half a mile across open ground." She met his eyes. "Do you trust me?" He swallowed hard. "I don't even trust myself right now." "Then trust your instinct," she said. "It has kept you alive this long." The hunters began to climb the ridge. Jack could see their eyes glowing red through the dust. Karinith's glow dimmed. She was weakening. Jack took a deep breath. "All right, on your mark." She nodded, gathering the last of her strength. The air around her shimmered, and light formed wings across her back. Beautiful, golden, unreal. She looked almost divine. "Run," she said. They leapt from the ridge together, sliding down the slope as sand exploded around them. Energy blasts tore through the air, missing by inches. Jack fired blindly behind them, covering their retreat. Karinith raised a weak shield, deflecting the worst of it. They reached the open plain. The wrecked ship shimmered in the distance, half buried under the sun. The ground shook again, the fortress above lowering closer. The hunters were behind them now, fast, relentless. Almost there, Jack shouted. Karinith stumbled. Jack caught her arm, pulling her forward. She looked at him, her voice faint. If I do not survive, don't say that. You must protect the core. Promise me. Just get to the ship. They reached the glowing hull. Jack grabbed the side and pulled her up. She touched the metal with both hands, whispering something in her own language. The surface lit up, spreading light across the sand like veins of fire. The ground exploded behind them, a blast from the fortress striking nearby. Jack fell, ears ringing. Karinith screamed, a sound of pain and power. The ship responded, rising slightly from the ground. Its core came alive, a heart of blue and gold fire. The hunters stopped, raising their arms to shield themselves. The fortress hesitated, the light fading for a moment. Karinith stood tall again, though her body flickered like fading light. She looked at Jack, her expression fierce. You asked who I am, she said. I am the one who defied the stars. Then she raised her hands, and the ship's core exploded with blinding light. The desert vanished in gold. For a long moment, there was nothing. No sound, no air, no heat. Only light, endless and pure. When it faded, the ridge was gone. The hunters were gone. The fortress had retreated into the clouds. And Jack was alone beside the glowing ship. The sand turned to glass all around him. Karinith lay still, her skin no longer glowing, her eyes closed. He knelt beside her, heart racing. Karinith, hey, stay with me. Her lips moved faintly. They will return. Then we'll be ready, he said. But she didn't answer. He looked up at the sky, the fortress fading into the distance, and knew this wasn't over. Not even close. Night fell again over the desert, but this time the stars seemed closer, as if watching silently after the storm. The sand still glowed faintly where Karinith's energy had touched it, turning the ground into smooth glass. Jack Turner sat by the wrecked alien ship, his rifle resting beside him, eyes fixed on her still form. For hours he hadn't moved. He didn't know if she was alive or something else entirely. Her body didn't breathe the way humans did. No rise, no fall. Only a faint golden pulse under her skin, like a dying ember refusing to fade. He had seen death in war, too many times. But this felt different. This wasn't just a person dying. It felt like something ancient was slipping out of the world. Jack leaned forward. Come on, he muttered. You didn't burn half the desert just to quit now. The wind whispered across the dunes, carrying soft sounds like voices from far away. Then, slowly, her fingers twitched. The golden light brightened a little, and her lips parted with a shallow breath. Jack almost laughed in disbelief. You're alive. Karinith's eyes opened, faint, glowing. For now, she whispered. He helped her sit up. Her body trembled, the glow around her faint and unstable. You burned yourself out, Jack said. You need rest, food, something. She gave a weak smile. Your concern is misplaced. My kind feeds on energy, not matter. Well, you used up all your energy saving my dumb life, he said. So, yeah, I think you owe me the chance to return the favor. She stared at him for a moment, then nodded softly. Very well. Jack found a blanket from his cabin, wrapped it around her shoulders and sat beside her. The silence stretched between them, heavy but not uncomfortable. The sky above them was filled with more stars than he'd ever seen. Maybe her explosion had burned away some of the upper atmosphere, making them clearer. Finally, he asked, What are they? Those hunters? Karinith's eyes turned upward. They are Dral. Once they were our guardians. They served my house, the house of Corinthus, for centuries. They swore loyalty to my bloodline. And now they're trying to kill you. They no longer serve life, she said quietly. They serve control. Jack frowned. Control of what? Karinith turned to face him. Her voice lowered, as if afraid the stars might overhear. The memory of what we were. The truth of our fall. He waited, but she seemed lost in thought, so he said gently, "Then start from the beginning. I think I've earned the truth." She nodded slowly. "Yes, you have." Karinith closed her eyes. A soft golden light shimmered around her head, forming faint shapes in the air. Moving images made of light and dust. Jack watched, mesmerized. "In our beginning," she said, "we were wanderers between suns. We did not fight, did not conquer. We built worlds from dust and sang life into them. That was our gift, creation. But the more power we found, the less we remembered what it was for. The glowing dust changed, showing bright cities made of crystal and light. Then, fire. Planets breaking apart. Our empire divided," she continued. "Some believed creation was divine. Others claimed it was ownership. My house stood for life. The Drow chose war." The image shifted again, showing tall armored figures with glowing red eyes, leading armies across worlds. "When the Drow turned on us," she said, "they slaughtered millions. My family was erased. I escaped with one ship, this one, and I fled to the only place left untouched by the Empire." "Earth," Jack whispered. She nodded. "Your world lies far from their maps. It was meant to be my sanctuary, my place of silence." Jack rubbed his face. "And instead, you found me." Karinith smiled faintly. "Fate enjoys irony." He laughed quietly. "So what happens now? You rest here forever? Wait for them to come again." Her expression turned serious. "They will come again. But this time they will not only hunt me. They will study you." "Me?" Jack asked. She met his eyes. "When you helped me, when you touched my blood, it changed you." Jack froze. "What do you mean changed me?" Karinith reached out and touched his arm. "You carry a piece of my essence now. My power. My enemies will sense it." Jack pulled back instinctively. "You're saying they'll come for me?" "They will come for anything that carries my mark," she said. "That includes this planet." He stood, pacing in frustration. "Great. So I saved you. And now you've painted a target on Earth." Karinith watched him silently. "If I could remove it, I would." Jack took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm in his chest. "Then tell me how we fight back." She studied him carefully. "You are human. You are not ready for what's coming." He met her gaze with the same stubborn fire that had carried him through every battlefield. "Lady, humans have never been ready for anything. We just adapt fast." Karinith's lips curved slightly. "You sound like one of us. Maybe we're related after all." She looked away then, her face unreadable. "Perhaps that is why I came here." Something in her tone made him stop. "What do you mean?" She hesitated. "I didn't come to Earth only to rest. I came because I saw something in your kind. Something we lost long ago." Jack waited. She continued, voice soft, almost sad. "You still fight for reasons that have nothing to do with conquest. You still care. You still dream even when you suffer. My people forgot how." The silence stretched again. The wind picked up, carrying fine dust across the glowing sand. Jack looked out into the endless horizon and said quietly, "Then maybe that's why you're still alive. Maybe you needed a reminder." Karinith turned toward him, and for the first time, her smile wasn't royal or distant. It was human. Perhaps. The moment broke when the ship behind them made a low humming sound. Jack turned quickly. The hull was glowing brighter, the same blue-gold veins spreading outward again. "Is that supposed to happen?" he asked. Karinith stood, unsteady. "It responds to me. But something is wrong." The glow pulsed faster. Then the air shimmered, a distortion like heat haze, forming shapes around the ship. Jack reached for his rifle. "Karinith?" "Not them," she said. "Something else." The light around the ship bent, and then, like a mirage becoming real, a figure appeared. It wasn't Drow. It looked a human, or close to human. A tall man in dark armor with silver hair and glowing blue eyes. Jack raised his rifle. "You've got to be kidding me." Karinitha's voice trembled. "No, cannot be." The man stepped closer, his boots sinking lightly into the sand. His voice was calm, deep, almost kind. "You survived, my sister." Jack's mind went blank. "Wait, what?" Karinitha's face went pale. "Aranth." He smiled. "You thought I was dead. You left me to burn." "I tried to save you," she said softly. "You fled," he said, his voice suddenly sharp. "You left everything behind. You let the Drow slaughter our people, our parents, because you were too afraid to lead." Jack looked between them, his grip tightening on the rifle. "He's your brother?" Karinith didn't answer. She just stared at the man, at Aranth, as tears of golden light rolled down her face. Aranth looked at Jack then, studying him with cold curiosity. "And this one? A human? How strange. You bring one of them into our bloodline." "Leave him," Karinith said. "He has nothing to do with this." Aranth tilted his head. "On the contrary, his presence tells me you have already begun to share your power. That makes him dangerous." Jack raised the rifle. "You can test that theory." Aranth didn't even blink. "Do you know what you're holding, human? A toy built to kill your own kind. You think it can stop me?" Karinith stepped between them. "Enough." Aranth smiled again, cruelly. "Always the protector. Always the fool." The ground trembled as he raised his hand. The air thickened with energy. Not blue, not gold, but black. It spread like smoke, swirling around him. Karinith shouted, "Jack! Get back!" Jack dove aside just as a blast of dark energy tore through the sand where he'd been standing. The shockwave threw him backward. The ship's glow flickered violently. Karinith rose into the air, her golden light fighting against her brother's shadow. "Why are you doing this?" she cried. Aranth's voice thundered through the desert. "Because I will finish what our kind began. The stars will kneel again." Their power collided, gold against black, lighting up the night sky like a second sunrise. Jack shielded his eyes. The force threw sand and glass into the air. When he looked again, the siblings were locked in a storm of energy, their figures barely visible. He shouted, "Karinith!" but she couldn't hear him. And as the desert shook under the fury of two alien gods, Jack realized the truth. This wasn't a battle about her survival anymore. It was about who would control the future of humanity. The desert was no longer silent. The night roared with thunder that wasn't made by clouds. Golden and black light clashed high above the dunes, painting the horizon with violent storms of energy. Jack Turner could hardly breathe as he watched Karinith and her brother fight, two beings older than anything humanity had ever known, their power tearing the very air apart. He hid behind the wrecked ship, sand whipping into his face as waves of energy rolled through the valley. Every strike from Karinitha's golden aura cracked the ground like lightning. Every counterattack from Aranth's black fire sent shockwaves that shattered stone. Jack shouted, "Karinith!" but his voice was lost in the storm. He could see her struggling. Every move she made seemed slower, weaker. Her wounds from the last battle hadn't healed, and the desert had drained her strength. Aranth, however, fought like a god who had waited centuries for revenge. His black energy cut through her defenses again and again. Jack's heart pounded. He couldn't just sit and watch. He grabbed his rifle and ran toward the ship, searching for anything useful. Sparks flickered across the alien panels. The console still hummed faintly. Maybe there was a way to help her. He pressed his hands to the strange glowing surface. "Come on," he muttered. "Work, damn it." To his surprise, the ship responded, lights brightening as if recognizing his voice. A soft hum grew under his palms. Then the voice of the ship's AI echoed inside his mind. Human genetic pattern recognized. Access permitted. Jack blinked. "You've got to be kidding me. Energy reserve critical. Command?" Jack glanced toward the sky where Karinith was falling back under her brother's fury. "Give her power. Now." Transfer link unstable. Host connection required. He didn't fully understand, but he didn't have time to think. Do it! The console lit up. A surge of energy ran through his hands like fire and ice at once. He screamed as golden light burned into his veins. The ship trembled, feeding its power into Karinith through him. In the sky, Karinith gasped. Golden sparks flared around her as her strength returned, but with something new inside it. Her light changed, sharper, stronger, wilder. She turned her gaze toward Jack for just a heartbeat, her eyes glowing brighter than ever. Aranth sensed it immediately. "What have you done?" he roared. Karinith didn't answer. She raised both hands, and for the first time, her golden light pushed back against his darkness. The desert exploded in a wave of heat and light, shaking the earth for miles. Jack fell to his knees, the ship's console smoking behind him. His body felt like it was on fire from the inside, but he didn't care. He saw Karinith rise again, her aura blazing like a second sun. "You will not touch this world," she shouted. Aranth laughed, a cold, echoing sound that carried through the night. "You think this dirt planet is worth saving? They're insects. They're nothing." Karinith's voice thundered back. "Then you have forgotten who we were." She shot forward, striking her brother with a burst of golden energy so bright it blinded Jack. The sky itself seemed to split open. Black and gold collided again, but this time the balance shifted. The darkness began to thin. Aranth stumbled, his armor cracking. He bared his teeth. "You think you can destroy me, sister? You forget what runs in your veins." He thrust out his hands. Shadows spread across the desert floor, twisting into monstrous shapes. They rose like beasts made of smoke, dozens of them, surrounding her. Karinith gritted her teeth. Her light flared, destroying one after another, but there were too many. For every shadow she broke, two more rose. Jack stumbled from behind the ship, coughing in the dust. He raised his rifle, useless against creatures of light and shadow, but he fired anyway, shouting as bright streaks cut through the air. "Over here, you freaks!" The shadows turned toward him. Aranth laughed darkly. "You see? Even the human thinks he matters." Karinith's eyes widened. "Jack, no!" The creatures rushed toward him, moving fast as smoke in the wind. Jack kept firing, retreating, but one reached him, striking him across the chest. He fell backward, the rifle spinning away. Pain burned through him, sharp and electric. The mark on his arm, where Karinith's blood had touched him, flared to life again, glowing bright gold. The shadow beast hissed, recoiling. Karinith's voice rang out. "Enough!" She raised her hand, and golden fire poured from her palm, sweeping over the sand and burning the shadows away in an instant. Aranth snarled, shielding his face. "You would burn your gift for them?" he shouted. "For a primitive species that can't even reach the stars?" Karinith's expression hardened. "They are what we were meant to be, free." Aranth's fury erupted. He unleashed a storm of black energy, and Karinith met it head-on. Their powers clashed again, shaking the sky. But now the golden light had a new core, a human spark inside it. Jack's spark. The ship behind him groaned. Its systems flared to life on their own. Panels rose from the sand, forming strange devices that pointed toward the battle above. One by one, they started to glow, pulling energy from the ground. The AI's voice echoed faintly. "Final defense protocol activated." Jack realized what was happening. The ship was preparing to self-destruct, to release all its remaining energy. He shouted toward the sky, "Karinith, the ship, it's going to blow." But she didn't turn. She was locked with her brother, every ounce of power focused on holding him back. Aranth's black light flickered. He screamed in fury, "If I fall, this planet dies with me." Karinith looked down at Jack for one last moment. Her face softened. "Then I will fall with it." "Don't!" Jack shouted. "There has to be another way." She smiled faintly. "You gave me something I thought I'd lost. Hope. That is enough." Golden light gathered around her, brighter than the sun. It swallowed the sky, pushing back every shadow, every trace of darkness. Errant's voice turned to rage, then to silence. The explosion came like dawn. The entire desert lit up as the ship released its energy, a golden wave expanding outward for miles. Jack covered his face, the heat burning the air. For a heartbeat, everything was light. Then silence. The storm faded. The air cooled. The stars returned. Jack opened his eyes. The desert was quiet again. The ship was gone. Nothing left but glass sand and drifting smoke. He stood slowly, his body trembling. Karinith? No answer. He walked forward through the glowing sand. Then he saw something. A faint golden crystal lying at the center of the crater. He knelt and picked it up carefully. It pulsed softly in his palm. Inside it, he thought he could hear a voice. Faint, almost like a whisper. Live, Jack. Remember. Tears filled his eyes. He closed his hand around the crystal and looked up at the stars. I will. The horizon flickered faintly. Far away, black streaks, the last of the Drow hunters, were retreating into space, fleeing from the energy that had nearly destroyed them. Jack knew they would return one day, but next time humanity wouldn't be unprepared. He stared at the crystal again. It glowed brighter in his hand, responding to him, linking with him. He didn't understand it completely, but somehow he felt her there. Her strength, her promise. He walked back toward the ruins of his cabin, limping but determined. The desert was quiet again, peaceful, but the silence no longer felt empty. In the far distance, a thin line of dawn began to rise, warm gold over the shattered sand. It looked like hope. Jack whispered, "You said we were never meant to be apart. Guess you were right." He looked down at the crystal one last time and placed it gently around his neck on a chain made from her ship's remains. The glow rested over his heart. For the first time in a long time, Jack Turner felt purpose again. He didn't know what would come next, whether he'd face the Drow or uncover what her people had hidden inside that cube of data. But he knew this much: the Desert War wasn't the end. It was the beginning. And somewhere, in the depths of the stars, the light of Karinith still burned, waiting for humanity to rise and finish what she started. The desert never looked the same again after that night. The sands still shimmered faintly under the morning sun, as if the ground remembered what had happened there. Every gust of wind carried a soft golden glow, and sometimes, when the air was still, people swore they could hear a distant hum, like a heartbeat under the earth. Jack Turner stood on the edge of the crater where Karinith's ship had vanished. He had come here every sunrise for weeks, staring at the glassed sand and the sky that had once burned with light. He didn't know what he was waiting for. Maybe a sign, maybe her voice, maybe just peace. Around his neck hung the crystal that still glowed softly. It never dimmed, pulsed every few seconds. Faint, steady, like a living thing. He whispered, "I kept my promise." Behind him, an engine hummed. A black government vehicle stopped near the ridge. Two figures stepped out. Men in suits, the kind who never smiled and never asked politely. The taller one raised his hand in greeting. "Mr. Turner," he called out. "We've been looking for you." Jack didn't turn. "Yeah, I figured." The second man approached carefully. "We know what happened here. We've seen the scans. You're lucky to be alive." Jack finally faced them. His face was calm, but his eyes carried a weight they didn't understand. "I'm not lucky," he said. "She saved me." The taller agent crossed his arms. "She? The entity?" "She had a name," Jack said sharply. "Karinith." The agents exchanged a quick glance. The first man cleared his throat. "Right. The alien woman. We recovered fragments of her ship. Some kind of alloy we can't identify. And this?" He held up a small metallic case. "A cube we found about a mile from here. We believe it was left for you." Jack took the case silently. When he touched it, the crystal around his neck glowed brighter. The cube responded, unfolding like origami, layers of metal shifting until a small holographic light appeared above it. The agents stepped back in surprise. The hologram showed a series of star systems, then a line connecting one of them to Earth. Symbols appeared, changing into English letters. Words glowed in midair. Human genetic code, origin, Dral Empire archive. Jack stared. She said it was proof. Proof of what? The taller agent asked. Jack closed the cube and looked at them. That we aren't from here. The men looked confused. You mean humans? Yes, Jack said quietly. She told me humans and her kind, the Dral, were once one species. Long ago, before the Empire fell apart. Before they erased our history. Earth wasn't our first home. The agents didn't respond right away. The wind howled between them. Finally, one said, "You understand how big this claim is?" Jack gave a tired smile. "You have no idea." They drove him back to a hidden facility outside Nevada. A clean, cold building surrounded by desert fences and silence. Inside, scientists and military officers filled rooms full of screens showing data from the cube. They had already started decoding it. Jack walked through the halls quietly, the crystal still glowing against his chest. People whispered as he passed. Some looked afraid of him. Others looked at him like he was a legend they didn't know what to believe. Inside a control room, the lead scientist greeted him. "Mr. Turner, we've been analyzing the cube. It's rewriting our understanding of genetics. There's code in here, not DNA as we know it. It's a kind of living data instructions to evolve." Jack frowned. "Evolve into what?" "We're not sure," the scientist admitted. "But this data," he pointed at the screen, "it matches human DNA patterns perfectly. Whoever created it built us to become something else. Something more." Jack stared at the data, feeling a strange calm inside him. "She said we had forgotten who we were." The scientist looked confused. "Who said that?" Jack's voice softened. "Kari Nith." That night, Jack sat alone in the observation room. He stared at the cube glowing faintly on the table. The air felt heavy, full of secrets and something vast, just beyond understanding. He touched the crystal again. It warmed under his fingers, responding. For a second, he thought he heard her voice again, soft as wind through the sand. "You are the bridge." "Bridge to what?" he whispered. Before he could think further, alarms blared through the facility. Red lights flashed. People shouted in the corridors. Jack ran out, grabbing his rifle from the wall, instincts kicking in from his soldier days. He found the lead scientist running toward him, panic on his face. "The sky! Look outside!" Jack rushed to the surface. The desert night was alive again. But this time, the light in the sky wasn't gold or black. It was red. Dozens of glowing shapes were entering Earth's atmosphere, silent, fast, and not human-made. The Dral were coming. Jack's heart pounded. "How did they find us?" The scientist pointed to the cube. "That thing, it's a beacon. It's broadcasting." Jack stared at the glowing cube in his hand. "She told me it would awaken us," he said. "She didn't say it would invite them." The sky shook with distant thunder as the first of the ships appeared above the horizon. Sleek, sharp, black silhouettes glowing with red energy. Earth's military scrambled jets. But they were nothing compared to what was coming. Jack knew what he had to do. He ran back to the lab and grabbed the cube and the crystal. "If they want this, they'll have to take it from me," the scientist shouted. "You can't go out there." "I already have something they want," Jack said. He looked at the glowing light pulsing under his skin. The mark Kari Nith had left. "I'm not just a man anymore." He stepped outside as the ships descended, huge, silent, like shadows swallowing the stars. Wind blasted across the desert as the lead Dral ship landed, sand swirling around its dark hull. A tall figure stepped out, armored with eyes like burning red glass. Its voice echoed across the desert. "Human, return what is ours." Jack stood firm. "She gave it to me. It's not yours anymore." The alien tilted its head. "You protect her memory? I protect her promise." The creature raised its hand, but before it could strike, Jack's crystal flared. Golden energy burst from it, rising into the air like wings of light. The cube responded, floating up and spinning rapidly. The ground trembled. A shock wave of gold energy spread outward, pushing the Drow ships back. The alien commander staggered. Impossible! That power! Jack's voice was calm but strong. It's not hers anymore. It's ours. The light from the cube expanded, connecting to satellites, to the sky, to everything that held electricity. Around the world, devices flickered on. Phones, screens, sensors, all displaying the same message in golden letters. We were never meant to be apart. The Drow ships started to retreat, engines screaming as the light tore through their systems. The commander roared and vanished in a flash, his ship breaking apart in midair. When the storm cleared, Jack stood alone again in the glowing sand. The cube and the crystal floated in front of him, humming softly, then merged into one shape, a golden sphere that hovered before his chest before sinking slowly into him, disappearing beneath his skin. The light faded. The desert was quiet once more. Days later, the world changed. The scientists confirmed that the energy wave had altered something in the planet's biosphere. Human DNA was evolving, adapting, awakening dormant strands that had slept for millennia. People began to feel different, stronger, faster, more aware. Jack watched it all unfold from a small cabin far from the cities. He didn't want fame or command. He wanted peace. He knew Karanitha's gift was never meant to make gods. It was meant to remind humans what they were capable of. One night, as he looked up at the stars, he felt that same familiar warmth again. The crystal's light shimmered faintly inside his chest. And in the wind, her voice returned, soft, distant, filled with pride. You kept your word, Jack Turner. He smiled. I had a good teacher. He looked up at the stars again. Somewhere out there, her kind would see what Earth had become, what humanity had risen to be. And when they came again, they wouldn't find a broken planet. They'd find a species ready to stand beside the stars. Jack Turner, the man who met an alien noblewoman in the desert, had become the bridge between two civilizations. And that bridge would change the galaxy forever.